내 차례야. 버텨보라고!
Hey guys, Sparks here with another Goddess of Victory Nikke video. Nihilister was one of the most anticipated units in the game and is now one of the most clowned on units, but I'm going to show you why the haters are wrong. Check out this massive damage against Chatterbox in Special Interception, Rebuild Stout level 10 Union Raid, and even Material H level 10. We'll get into all her skills and what she's good at in more detail, but let's talk about why she failed to meet expectations and why it was impossible for her to do that from the beginning. Nihilister is a burst 2 attacker with a 20-second cooldown, so this means that as an attacker, unit type, it's typically going to focus on dealing damage and have some self-serving buffs. This is in contrast to a support unit that generally would deal less damage but have buffs that will benefit your other attackers or the whole team, which is what a lot of burst 2s are. And typically your main DPS units are your 2 burst 3 attackers, so buffing them can have a dramatic increase on your overall damage output instead of trying to just deal damage with a single burst 2. Additionally, burst 3 attackers have a 40-second cooldown. That's why you need 2 of them, right? So Nihilister is a 20-second cooldown, so when people compare her to other Pilgrim attackers like Scarlet and Modernia, Nihilister is doomed to look weak. If the developers actually made her just as strong, they would effectively break the game, because she's going to go off twice as often as your burst 3s. Imagine if Scarlet was a burst 2 with 20-second cooldown. It would be insane. Okay, so you can see that due to Nihilister's attacker class and being a 20-second cooldown burst 2, she's inherently held back by design constraints. However, this doesn't mean she's weak. Remember, Rupee and Viper are similar and can also make your squad deal crazy damage. Okay, so she is a fire type with a sniper rifle. Yeah, I know, weird choice. Her first skill activates every time you do a full charge shot, and it gives her pierce and increases the radius by 50%. Additionally, if she hits 2 or more enemies, it'll deal an extra percentage of her attack as additional damage. You can see at level 7, it's about 37%. Pierce is an extremely strong and useful ability. It's one of the reasons why Alice and Snow White are so good. It allows her to hit multiple enemies at once, deal multi-hits to cores, and shoot through shields. Skill 2 automatically goes off every 10 seconds and is an AoE attack that deals a large percentage of her attack as damage. At level 7, it's nearly 100%. This is pretty generic, just deals a bunch of damage, but it's a decent skill. Her burst is an AoE that deals about 150% of her attack as damage and inflicts burn, which deals 11% of attack every second for the next 10 seconds. It also increases her max ammo by 5 rounds for 15 seconds. This last part is really good because it ensures that she won't have to take the time to reload during full burst, and the burst is great against bosses. Now, for cubes, you have a few choices. Resilience is quite good because her reload speed isn't the slowest, but it's also not the fastest either. However, with her burst giving her more ammo and the possibility of getting max ammo up from overload gear, I'm actually starting to prefer the charge damage from the Onslaught cube. Otherwise, you could do the Adjutant cube for faster charging because you usually want to do fully charged shots with her every time, but it just gives her a tiny speed bump. Then you have the Wingman cube to straight up add more ammo capacity if you aren't getting it from overload gear. As an attacker unit, she can fit into many teams pretty well. There's no particular unit you need to support her or that she needs to support. That said, there are some specific bosses she can be very strong against. I'll show you that in a moment. But notable squad mates for Nihilister are Alice, Power, Modernia, Dorothy, and Maxwell. But like I said, she can go kind of against any boss killing team and for raids or special interception and do well. In the shooting range, she managed to get me a new high score and even outdamage Rupee and Viper. So she is the new queen for burst 2s in the shooting range. As always, I say this is a very limited test. It only shows a small picture of what a unit can do, but this is just another example of her high damage potential. Also, keep in mind that at the time of this shooting range test, Nihilister had the same skill levels as Rupee and the same number of overload gear and only a base body with level 10 affection compared to Rupee, which was at max limit break and level 30 affection. In PvE, the thing that everyone consistently agrees on is that she is great in the Pilgrim Tribe Tower. Just the fact that she allows you to burst normally every cycle without having to wait is super valuable, and you'll find that she generally outdamages most of your other Pilgrims aside from Scarlet and Modernia. Outside the tower, she is reasonable in any situation, but she shines the most against bosses, and particularly ones that she can pierce through. So if they have multiple parts or shields, she's extremely effective against Chatterbox, actually outdamaging Power and even Modernia, who, by the way, mine was at Core 1 and level 40 affection with double overload gear, and Nihilister still did more damage. She is also super useful in the last raid against Rebuild Stout, where she could pierce through the shield and deal even more damage behind the shield with Burn. She was also effective against the dreaded Material H. She could take down adds quickly and shoot through the core as well. In PvP, she's kinda mid. She has high stats and decent burst generation, but there are some really effective teams in Arena, so she's not exactly changing the meta. She might make it onto your third squad in Special Arena, and if you don't have all the units, she's definitely not the worst option for Burst 2, but since you can't even unlock her until after you beat Chapter 20, chances are you'll have a pretty big selection of units. But I just wanted to show you this amazing comeback we had with the Nihilister team. This fight went on way longer than I would have ever expected, and I really thought I was going to lose, but somehow we came back for the win, so you can see she definitely can work in Arena. Now, I was originally planning to just unlock my first copy of her and fanboy a little bit, but had no intention of buying spare bodies to limit break her, but after all the testing I've done and the last Union raid and the surprisingly good results, I've actually started saving for spare bodies. This is the wrong decision because the value you get from cubes is just way better. It doesn't even matter if we're talking about Nihilister, Guilty, or whoever, but just think of it, think it will be fun. She's proven to be useful enough to me that I'm not going to regret it. Nihilister is a very strong unit, but I think people are just afraid to invest in her or overload gear on her. If you build her, you will see the same results I've shown you. Now, you might say, I'm not lucky and RNG slaps me every day with abnormal defender gear. And to that, I say, I don't know how to help you. Get good.